Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel and welcome to another GT Sport Daily race and strategy guide for week 42 of 2021. We are visiting the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit in a slightly more sedate Group 4 category. So detailed settings for this one up on the screen as we do the flyover. 9 laps to get round, tyre wear at ×3, fuel just at ×2. It's only the racing hard tyres that are available, so no mandatory tyres, and from Kudos Prime there is no mandatory pit stop either. BOP is on, damage is off, it's a rolling start and slipstream is real. So if you're detecting a little bit of glumness in my voice, then that is because literally there is no strategy for this one. I guess you could call a no stop a strategy, but generally when we have a no stop race, at least tyre wear can be a little bit of a factor. Sometimes fuel comes into play as well, although it is fairly rare to have fuel as a factor in a daily race these days. But yeah, this race is very much a strange one, even for a no stop, with the tyre wear being so low, only at ×3. This is literally just a sprint race in every way, shape and form. Tyre wear barely plays a factor at all, as we shall demonstrate a little bit later on in the video. So yeah, a fairly strange decision from PD here to give it, absolutely no strategy whatsoever. I honestly can't think of a race in the past that has had so little other factors on the cars or the way you drive as this one is. Last time we did Nurburgring GP in Group 4, it was definitely a fuel saving race, I seem to remember now. That did mean that obviously certain cars then came to the fore. Perhaps the idea behind this one, with the sort of tyre wear being so low, is to try and make a far bigger selection of cars viable for this race. So for this purpose, or the purpose of this video, we've kind of not really got a lot of strategy to talk about. We've pretty much covered that so far. We have tested a number of cars from each of the sort of drivetrains within Group 4, and I'll give you a little bit of a mini review of them and hopefully give you some guidance as into what cars are going to be competitive for this race this week. So first up, we've got the Audi TT, our FF category. That's front wheel drive, front engine mounted cars. Generally they tend to wear out the front tyres quite bad in terms of tyre wear, so you tend to run the brake balance all the way to the rear on these cars. But even at ×3, even for these cars who are quite bad on their tyre wear, you can see less than 10% wear on the front tyres there. We finished with our fastest lap of the race by a considerable margin right at the end at 2:06.6. Finishing time 19 minutes 13.4. Now this was the first car we picked, so obviously we're still getting used to just the track and kind of the general Group 4 Nurburgring GP combo, so definitely a lot more time to be had with from the Audi TT there, so do bear that in mind when we kind of look at the comparison table towards the end. Next up, we've got the Subaru WRX. That's our 4-wheel drive representative. The WRX is a very strong Group 4 car at the moment and does tend to be very strong around this track as well. And that does prove to be the case going by the lap times. Best lap of 2:06.5, only a tenth quicker than our best lap in the TT, but much more laps within the 2:06 bracket. Actually better on the tyres as well compared to the TT. Definitely a little bit more potential in the Subaru, I think, but 3 seconds quicker than the Audi TT, actually 4 seconds quicker than the Audi TT overall. Definitely shows it is quite competitive around here. Next up, we've got my favourite Group 4 car, the Ferrari 458. This is our MR representative, so that's a mid-engine car, rear wheel drive, brake balance at +1 for the Ferrari, and you can see from the lap times they are very consistent and very competitive, even compared to the Subaru. Actually quicker, to be perfectly honest with you, in my hands, and that could just be down to the fact that I am very comfortable in this car, and something like the Subaru with its 4-wheel drive does tend to have a particular driving style that I'm maybe not quite on top of. In terms of tyre wear, almost non-existent on the Ferrari. Because of the nature of the car, it tends to even out that tyre wear as well between the fronts and the rears, so the car maintains a very nice balance throughout the run. And 19 minutes 07.5, actually a second and a half quicker than our Subaru. So again, as I said, I'm not saying it's a quicker car than the Subaru around this track, but certainly in my hands, in terms of my comfort levels with the car, I was very happy with the Ferrari around here. Next up we've got the Renault Megane Trophy. It's another MR car, but it tends to be a very different handling beast to something like the Ferrari and the McLaren. It's all about the handling in this car. I'm never that comfortable in it, to be perfectly honest with you. I think you kind of have to force the car around the track a little bit more than what it goes against my driving style a little bit. But you can see from the lap times there, a 2:06.1, the fastest lap so far. Tyre wear non-existent. What I will say for the Renault Megane Trophy, it's quick, but it seemed very sketchy on the rear. I had to put the brake balance to 0 to stop the back end from stepping out in the braking zones, and I didn't have a lot of fun driving that car around the track, but definitely fast, definitely competitive. I think you'll see a few of them out there this week. And our FR representative is the Ford Mustang Group 4. Now I want to kind of try this car, not because I thought it would be especially quick. It does turn out it's actually pretty competitive, a 2:06.2 as its fastest lap there, and optimal into the 2:05s. A little bit more tyre wear on the Mustang. We actually only at lap 7 here. I did sort of jump into the pits just to test the pit lane loss here, just in case you're interested. It comes in around about 22 to 23 seconds in fuel, obviously no issue as we have discussed. But the reason I want to kind of test the Ford Mustang is because it's so much worse on fuel than every other car. I want to see if that's going to prove to be any kind of advantage. Now it may well be the case, but I think just given the tyre wear, it does tend to burn the tyres out a little bit more than the other cars. It would probably be negated just by that tyre wear. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That was 5 cars that we tested. I've got a wee table here. I've got all the finishing times up on the screen, their best laps and their optimal laps as well. So you can see from the best laps, all 5 of the cars that we tested lapping within 4/10 of a second. Now PD do tend to get quite a lot of grief for their BOP in this game, but I think, you know, you're taking 5 very different cars there, different drivetrains, different handling characteristics. And it's quite a long lap around the Nurburgring GP at 2 minutes and 6 seconds. To have all 5 of those cars within 4/10 of each other, I think the BOP is actually a lot better in Group 4 than people give the game credit for, or Polyphony Digital credit for. But hopefully all that information up there on the screen is nice and handy for you to compare. My kind of takeaway from the testing that I've done here is that lots of cars should be very usable around here. Now it will no doubt be a certain couple, maybe 2-3 cars that will become the meta. By the time we get to sort of maybe Wednesday, the kind of variation in the field is probably going to be pretty limited, as a kind of certain car, whatever car it will happen to be. Perhaps the Renault Megane Trophy in this case comes to the fore. Everybody thinks it's the best car, and so therefore 95% of the drivers will use that. But yeah, I was quite happy to see so many different cars being competitive. So what I'm going to do for this one, it's not going to be a strong race for me. Any races that don't have kind of reasonable tyre wear, I tend to be quite weak in. So we will kind of experiment with some different cars throughout the week, and hopefully get some live stream action in there as well. But an unusual race, as I said, no strategy whatsoever. It's just a sprint race, and it should be interesting in one way, just to see what car comes to the fore, but in terms of strategy, not very interesting at all. So let's finish off the video here with a lap guide in the Ferrari 458. Now this didn't set the quickest lap out of the 5 cars we tested. That was a Renault Megane Trophy, but I'm much more comfortable in the Ferrari. I don't tend to enjoy driving the Trophy, so the Ferrari will be my choice. So down into turn number 1, you're looking for the 100-metre board, but you want to be braking around about 10 metres before that. Get the car over slowed into the apex here of turn number 1, so you can get on the throttle nice and early. Feather the car through this tricky left-hander here. It's easy to get a little bit of understeer and run wide on the throttle here, and take a nice tight line into this left-hander here, so you can get a better run out of this right-hander nice and early on the throttle, because you get a reasonable bit of straight line down here towards, I think it's maybe turn number 6. So you're looking for the last of the cones on the right here as your braking point for this left-hander, and then it's the end of the curb on the left for this right-hander here. Now a lot of these corners are just all about momentum, a nice smooth flow on them, and then getting on the accelerator as early as possible. Down towards, I think it's the Dunlop hairpin now, you're looking for the start of the curb on the left hand side. You can either kind of take a nice tight line round this corner, or you can take a V shape. It's all about getting on the throttle as early as possible, because up through the Schumacher S is full throttle, so the more speed you can carry out the exit of the hairpin, you carry that all the way through here down towards the left-hander at the bottom of the hill. So you're looking for the start of the green curb on the right-hand side there as your braking point. You want to be touching that curb on the inside here, and then it's all about momentum and carry as much speed as you can and getting on the throttle as early as possible onto the back straight, and you should be in good stead if you manage that. Very easy to understeer wide out of that right-hander there, and it'll be very costly all the way down this straight. So looking for the 100 metre board for the chicane, but you will be making around about 10 metres before that, taking tons and tons of curb. You can be very, very generous with the curb you take. You'll get a little bit of an oversteer moment with an MR car, much more stable with something like the WRX or the Audi TT. And then into the last corner we come again, nice tight line, hugging that curb there, using all the curb on the outside. Over the line we come for a 206.208 in the Ferrari. Not a terrible lap time. Should see plenty of people in the 205s though, but they'll be just drivers that are quicker than me after all. So hopefully the guide has been useful in some way, shape or form. Again, no strategy whatsoever for me to talk about. Hopefully though, the kind of information in the cars has proven useful. If it has done, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.